And we are live. I'll take a second here for a moment. Let those of you who are going to be joining us join us. And while we're waiting, look at this. Look at this. And we're live. Live with Sondra. I got something. My producer's going to hate this, but I'm going to give something away right now. So if you're watching this and you're one of those lucky people, I want you to like and subscribe to our new Live with Sondra YouTube page. And if you do like and subscribe, leave me a comment on the chat. And the first 5 people, I'm going to send you one of our Live with Sondra mugs. My kids think I'm so cool because I have my own merch. All right, well, let's get to this conversation we're going to have today. Today, we're talking about something that affects every business, every destination, every leadership team, because growth usually doesn't break because people aren't trying hard enough. It breaks because somewhere between vision and execution, friction starts to show up. Systems stop telling the truth. Organizations become disconnected from the people they're trying to serve. And sometimes companies start throwing more at marketing and more at marketing problems than they are actually working on the structure or the structural part of what they need to be looking at in their businesses. Today, we're stepping beyond the obvious, beyond the traditional thinking, and beyond the berm. So, I'll see you after the intro. All right, we're back. I'm Sondra Shannon, CEO of Gatemaster Technology. And before we jump in, I want to thank our sponsor, Gatemaster. At Gatemaster, we believe technology should never tell you how to run your business. Technology should enhance the experience you're trying to create, because ticketing isn't just a transaction. Guest data isn't just about data. And friction isn't just about being inconvenient, it's expensive. And we help attractions create connected experience because disconnected systems create disconnected guests. And today's conversation is going to really be about clarity around some of this. So I want to bring in my guest for today. I'm joined by Liz Sánchez Rasking, founder and principal of Looking Glass Strategy. Liz thinks like an engineer and operates like a detective. She brings over 20 years of experience spanning industrial manufacturing, nonprofit advocacy, and themed entertainment. She specializes in reverse engineering systems, uncovering hidden bottlenecks, and helping organizations understand the gap between what they believe they are delivering and what the audience is actually experiencing. And somehow, in all of that, she still makes room for snark, whimsy, and whimsical, which is why I am really excited to bring Liz to the stage. Liz, thank you for joining me and welcome to Live with Sondra.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here. I kind of want to start. I have so many places that I want to start with this conversation, but I think I want to start with your focus on leading with intention and beyond the berm. The berm. Am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And for those who are outside of themed entertainment, what exactly does that symbolize? And, what does it really mean to take strategy beyond the berm?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like when when you're talking to people that aren't that familiar with the vernacular of theme parks and you say you need to project what it is that you want to do beyond the berm, I mean that both in the literal and the figurative sense, right? So like when you're walking at a theme park or even in a planned community and you see the rolling hillsides, you can't see the buildings on the other side of that hill. You can't see the shopping district because it's been designed with intent and so that your sight lines are clean, right? Well, that's also kind of a problem sometimes because if you want to grow or if you want to penetrate different markets or you want your guests or your prospective clients to be aware of what you're doing, sometimes you have to break beyond that barrier, that sight barrier. And it also means that you have to step outside of your comfort zone. You have to step outside of your silo. And so that's one of the reasons why I tend to use that term frequently now with folks because it signals that I'm not just swimming in one lane, and I encourage others to broaden their horizons.
Sure. I mean, you've worked across industrial manufacturing and nonprofit advocacy and themed entertainment, and those worlds are like completely different, which makes me wonder, what are some universal truths that remain maybe consistent across all of them? Because you mentioned like the sight line, and actually, I learned about that recently. A friend of mine who works for Disney,
Mhm,
uh, I was out with her, and she was telling me about just things I'd never even considered about how they want you to view the sky, right?
mhm.
Why they painted this building a certain way on this side of the building because you might be experiencing it from over there. You know what I mean? So I understand what that means now. I didn't prior to that conversation with her, and even what you're saying today. But across all of those things, maybe what some of those universal truths that you see.
The big one that jumps out at me is that technology is agnostic. A box doesn't care where you put it. It doesn't care how you use it. And you can take a product or you can take a service and you can cross-pollinate that across different sectors if you're able to identify the right pain point with the audience. And so what I find is that what I have found is that organizations get so entrenched in their own dogma and in their own processes that sometimes they fail to see that somewhere along the way something got misaligned and that misalignment compounds over time.
Sure.
And so this is one of the reasons why in my work I put a huge emphasis and central focus on the value of story and the value of proper branding, because a lot of folks treat it as cosmetic, like, oh, story is just something that you do when you're looking for good marketing copy or you're trying to work on the launch or a new launch or an activation, but it's not. It's foundation. And so people don't recognize that, they don't value it, not until they start noticing, "Oh, the 10K, the 50K that we just dropped on an expo and all of that marketing, that didn't net the ROI that we were expecting, so that was a failure." It's like, "Was it though?" Because
Right.
your marketing team, your communications team, they're following your orders, right? And if there is a disconnect, you have to engage in reflective exercises to be able to refine that message and to refine how you present to the world, and you have to do it intentionally and you have to do it consistently, which is what a lot of folks don't like to do because that's work.
Yeah. Let me ask you, because I think it's interesting that you brought up the alignment piece, especially when with regards to marketing. And I've had a lot of booths over the years, and I that resonates with me with regards to the ROI on that. But also what I found is that a lot of the marketing that we do that maybe isn't giving us the ROI is still out there building trust if you're telling the right story.
Mhm.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
It's I mean, and the thing is, I've been at a couple of different shows, and I've engaged in some conversations with senior leadership at previous employers. And the one thing that always just kind of grates on me, gets under my skin, is when marketing does what marketing does. They scan the badges and they are, putting all of these leads into the CRM system, and yet none of that converts, right? None of that converts into a sale. And so that sale number, that conversion rate, is what their success is being measured on. But was the story authentic? Was the story told in a way that the audience was going to feel and take away with them, right? And therein lies the problem, because you're measuring your team by the wrong KPIs. If the KPI is conversion and that is based on the story, it's not based on scanning badges.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's interesting. It's interesting. I know you have said before that the gap between what organizations believe about themselves and what the audiences actually experiences is where a lot of work lives, right?
yes. Yeah.
And I'm curious, how can a business objectively diagnose this gap before internal biases start getting in the way? Because I think that's also something that definitely plays out in organizations as they start looking at these things.
Absolutely. I feel like the best way to address it is to hire someone from the outside to come in, someone who's got no skin in the game, right?
Right.
Conduct an audit. You need to audit your brand, and you need to do it both with your internal and your external stakeholders. And you have to figure out, are you communicating in the voice of your organization? And a lot of organizations are like, oh, well, so and so Bob is our CEO. And so the voice of the organization needs to be Bob. It's like, no, it's not. The voice of the organization, the values and the principles, needs to be a reflection of the team, needs to be a reflection of everyone that is contributing to this, because everyone has to feel that mission. Everyone has to live it, right? And so Bob can say whatever he wants as the CEO, and that does carry some weight. But when Bob retires, or if Bob, is replaced by someone else, then what? Are you going to change the brand again? You're going to give people whiplash, right? And so the hard work is in figuring out, okay, who are we right now and who do we aspire to be? And this is the journey that we are going to be communicating to our audience, to our clients, our customers. And these are all of the different touch points where we have to communicate that story consistently so that they feel it, right? Um, yeah, I tell people, actually, I did this morning. Um, a gentleman came up to me, and he's also a branding and business development specialist. And I said, oh, yeah, I do branding and business development as well. And so he got me started, and he was, and I said, if I had a nickel for every time someone told me, oh, I sell Tupperware, so therefore Tupperware is my brand, I'd have a lot of nickels. I could take another cruise, right? And the truth is, it's not your brand, your story. It's not what you sell. It's not what you do. It's not, any of like the things that that you're engaged for. Your brand, your story is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that you said that because, I'm sitting here and I'm sure this is part of what you talk about. Like, this is our new one that we have. We have our mission and our vision talking about where we're going, our mission being what we actually do. I mean, obviously, we create and publish software and technology. But at the end of the day, when we look at what our mission is, I hope that this is, I'm trying to figure out if this is what you're saying. We as a team, our mission is to help attractions massively succeed.
Mhm.
That's the short of it, right? And so when we look at our team, we're not selling software. Like you said, we're not selling Tupperware. That's not the brand. We're selling success.
Right.
Every park we touch. And so, is that the story that we're talking about?
Yes. When you think about the mission and you have your values, you have your mission, you have your approach that you're going to be defining for yourself as an organization. Those things are not necessarily individual components that you're going to be communicating to the outside world, but you absolutely have to communicate it to everybody that is on the team, because you all have to sing from the same hymnal when you are working on implementing processes, or when you're working on developing any kind of a project, or a new narrative, right? And so I love this old example, and I forget where I heard it exactly, but I feel like it was during the Apollo mission, and someone was essentially interviewing all different kinds of folks within NASA, and they were asking, well, what are you, what do you do here, at Mission Control, or what are you doing here as an engineer? And Mission Control would say, some A, and an engineer, another engineer would say B, and so the same person went to a janitor and was like, well, what do you do here? And as he's pushing his broom or pushing his mop, he was like, I'm here to put a man on the moon.
Yeah.
And it's and that anecdote, that story sticks with me, because the job doesn't change the mission. The job is a contribution towards that. And so that's and that is the level of, like, foundational understanding that I feel leadership has lost sight of. And so that's what I work to fix.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I think you'll be happy to know that on here is also alignment. Like one of our values, which I think is super important, right? Especially alignment with the mission. So I love that. And I love that story about the janitor saying, I'm here to put a man on the moon, because
Mhm.
that's, it's a perfect tale of what we should be doing in our businesses with our entire teams. Now, one of the things I've seen, Liz, and I'm sure you've probably seen, is that when growth slows down, a lot of organizations assume they just need more content, more campaigns, more marketing. And I'm a big fan of marketing. I think marketing is senior to sales. Like, it has to happen. It's how people learn to trust you. It's reinforcing whatever's happening on this with the sales team. It can hopefully make the sale faster and easier, right?
Mhm.
But when it's slowing down and they just increase all those things, why do you think businesses default to buying more or putting more into marketing than rather than looking at the foundational strategies that need to be fixed?
'Cause that requires work.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or maybe they don't want to admit too that there's a disconnect at times, right?
yeah, yeah. What I would say is, and I have been in situations like that, where you're not hitting your numbers, you're not hitting your quota for the quarter, and you're like, "Oh, okay, well, then we're just gonna have to do a larger ad spend, to try and bolster that." Okay, that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is figuring out, or performing a postmortem on your failed conversions, right? Like your lost deals. Why did they say no? And one of the things that I've since, grown to appreciate is that sometimes a client saying no is worth more than getting the PO,
Sure.
because that no is going to help calibrate or help you course correct if you need to, as a result of hearing that over and over again, because then that's a trend, right? And so companies are not investing in that really intense and rigorous analysis of, that point of failure analysis. And just based on my background, I can't live like that, right? I have a traditional. I am not a business person. Like, I like to play one on TV though. I have a traditional engineering background, and so I'm a chemical engineer by education and training. And so one of the things that we've we've been drilled, like gone to boot camp to learn this, is you always have to maintain the bird's eye view of the entire process, of the entire landscape. And when you do, you're going to have your inputs, you're going to have your outputs, and when you have your outputs, you're going to have waste, right? And so what are you going to do? Are you going to route that somewhere else to be treated, or are you going to recycle it back into your vessel where you're trying to cook something up? Well, the same thing is analogous within the business community, because when you are launching a go-to-market strategy and it's not hitting the right notes for you, are you getting that feedback? What are you doing with it? Is it just going to get put in an executive summary somewhere, or are you going to loop that feedback back into the process so that you can continually improve, right? And these are exercises, these are processes. It's not a magic switch. It takes work, and it takes patience too. Mainly because folks tend to think, okay, well, if I throw a certain amount of money at pay-per-clicks or paid media ads, then it should net XYZ. And I'm thinking, okay, what are your assumptions here? What's the market that you're trying to communicate your story to? Are those aligned? Because if they're not, it doesn't care how much money you throw at it. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, if it's not resonating,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, going back to kind of your chemical engineering background, which is really fascinating to me and a very cool part of your story, when you look at organizations and how you're reverse engineering systems and identifying how bottlenecks in leadership exist, I'm trying to think of how to ask this question. How does that help you in solving that for them? Like, what is that? I'm just curious how all that works together because I don't know. Does that question make sense?
I think what I'm understanding is, how do you go from process engineering to social engineering,
Yeah.
right? And for me, it all boils down to one word: equilibrium. And so when you are designing a chemical process, when you're designing a flow system, a system that is based on flows or any kind of a reaction, you're maintaining the chemistry of that vessel, and you have to pay attention to all of the different inputs that are in there, like the concentrations, the qualities, the amounts, and then you have to decide, okay, what percentage of yield is going to be appropriate or acceptable, for your product. But when you're talking about humans don't always, follow the rules, right? But the essence, or at least the comparison or the analogy, that you have to maintain the chemistry, that's still very much true. In
Yeah.
order to be able to create something, you have to make sure that everybody on the team is basically aligned and committed to seeing, the delivery of that come through. And within chemical engineering, I also had the fortune of being I was trained in process controls. So essentially, that is the the electrical side of things. So like valves, safety valves, temperature gauges. Like if this happens, then trigger this. If this overflows, then trigger that. Right. So like there's all of these if then loops that you kind of have to build into your process so that you can handle contingencies and you don't blow things up, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the reasons why when I reverse engineer processes to help people make whatever goals they're trying to go after, my contingencies have contingencies, right? And so all of that gets mapped out visually, because I'm a visual person, and that is how you get people's buy-in, because you're not prescribing something to them willy-nilly. You're communicating to them, this is this is the composition of the team and the energy that you need in order to accomplish something. Are you making it or are you not making it? And where do those adjustments need to happen? That's time intensive. That requires a lot of well, a lot of like insight, mapping sessions and so forth. And so I think that when organizations are trying to look for the the fastest way to hit a number or pull in revenue, I'm like, if you do, you're lucky. Because like in business, there's no such thing as an overnight success, right? Um, Everything takes time, and marketing, advertising, these things, and branding, these things are not a switch that you just kind of like, you flip it on and it's like, oh, magic. No, it's more like a bank account where it compounds over time. It's an investment. And if you don't, if you're not consistent about your messaging or about how you show up for the community that you purport to serve, then that community is not, they're not going to be there for you when you need them.
Well, I mean, even if you just go back to like the algorithms, right? For searches, search engine optimization. I mean, if you have a strategy or a voice that you're trying to put out there that is it's going to take months before the work comes in, the work that you've done comes to fruition, because you've got to, one, allow the algorithm to pick it up, and it's going to be searched, and all of those things. So I think it's interesting because it isn't just about throwing it out there. Some of it is going to take time to see the full results of it. But if you're going to do that, you want to do it right, because it is going to take time,
Yep.
right?
And you don't want to feel like you have to constantly course correct. And I feel like this is the reason why establishing what your authentic story is and defining your brand the right way from the get-go is so critical to the success of individual organizations or programs.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I love that. I'm curious, for companies that are outside themed entertainment and organizations that want to create immersive and more memorable experiences, it's one of the first steps towards applying what you've learned in themed entertainment to thinking with intentionality.
I feel like, well, right now, one of the sectors that I'm focusing on pretty heavily is travel, tourism, hospitality. And I was just recently down at Sea Trade and was having some fairly frank and open discussions with destination management companies and various ports of call. And the one thing that kind of jumped out at me while, in my travels, in my personal travels, and also kind of within specific geographic regions, is when you are trying to cut costs or you're trying to jump on a trend, jump on a bandwagon, when you do that, everything starts to look the same. You start to lose that sense of individuality, that sense of that uniqueness and culture that feeds into the guest experience, right? Like when you go to a park, when you go into a museum, they're designed with that guest experience in mind. Like the architects and the designers and all of the creatives and the docents, they know what they want you to walk away with as the memory of being in that space. And I feel like that is a lesson, that is a discipline that can easily be transposed to hospitality, to commercial real estate, to tourism writ large. And so, in that regard, when I introduce myself to like my local chamber of commerce or to tourism authorities, for different countries, and I say I work in and adjacent to themed entertainment, and then they're like, okay, so then what does that have to do with me? Right? Like, I don't I don't have a roller coaster and I don't sell cotton candy, so I don't understand why you're here. And I had this exact conversation when I went down to the Capital Business Development Association. So there's a nonprofit org that helps small businesses land government contracts. And so I'm there with like a whole bunch of defense contractors, right? And that's that's not my jam, that's not my world, but I still wanted to go because I wanted to learn more about that ecosystem since I live in the DMV. And so I'm there, and someone's like, "Yeah, but themed entertainment has nothing to do with government contracting." I'm like, "The hell it doesn't." I go, what's the story you're trying to sell to your congressman, sir? What's the story? What is the justification for this capture report that you are submitting? How are you going to get people to sign up to support you and appropriate those funds? I go, you can have all of the technical expertise you want, but if you don't have the right narrative and you're not designing this you know, for the recipient, for the audience that you're trying to communicate to, you're not going to stand out.
Yeah. Well, also, I think in sales in general, like you got to be able to convince people of why they either need you or they need to fix something or they need to change the story in this case, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, and listen, I hear a lot of times from people, you who work outside of my industry that are talking with me about business that, well, how could you possibly understand? You're in this other industry. And the truth is, a lot of business is the same. The break points of business are the same. There are so many things that are happening in businesses that are really the same. As somebody who's been in business for 25 years, I for my and for myself, what I've experienced in terms of the growth of my company, the pivots that we've had to make, I find that most people experience in businesses despite the industry that they're in. And so, good marketing is good marketing, whether it's themed entertainment or it's Nike, right? Or Starbucks.
Yeah. And
Good
one of the
story
things that I
telling.
tell one of the things that I tell folks is that I think what makes me unique, what makes Looking Glass Strategies unique, in a sea of fractional business developers that are out there in all kinds of industries, is that I'm agnostic. I don't care if it's a mouse. I don't care if it's a wizard. I don't care if it's Coca-Cola. Like, I care about the fidelity of the image that you're trying to project. I care about the authenticity of the culture that you're purporting to represent or to serve. And so in that regard, I'm less concerned with the cosmetics and I'm more concerned with what's going on underneath the hood.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the other thing. Like, I was watching Liberty Mutual. Have you seen their new commercials?
Yep.
I mean, it's great storytelling. They don't even talk about what they're selling,
No.
but the storytelling behind what it is that they're doing in their commercials really makes you want to, like, you think they're cool and you want to know more about them. You want to know what they're selling. And, I think that that's interesting. It's an interesting approach that they have because every business can do that.
Yep.
Every business can have a story. Well, I want to quickly, because I know we're getting towards the end of this conversation, building the Mid Atlantic Hub.
Oh, yes.
We talk about that for a moment. I know that you are a board member of the TEA Eastern North America. You're helping establish the DMV and Mid Atlantic regions as a growing entertainment hub. Some really big things happening out your way. What are some of the advantages of building outside of the big traditional markets like Orlando, Southern California that you see?
The advantage is Well, proximity and repeat business.
Sure.
And so one of the trends that I've been seeing over the past couple of years is that the dollar keeps shrinking, right? So uh, a family's a, a family's ability to have the same amount of discretionary budget to travel to Orlando or to travel to LA just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And those price points to enter the parks and to stay at the resorts that are along I-Drive, well, they're not getting any cheaper, right? And so one of the things that I kind of bet on fairly early on is that people that are outside of the US are not necessarily going to come to the US, mainland US, to spend their money. And so therefore, I want to start focusing on what's going on at the ports of call that are closer to them. But conversely, within mainland USA, we're seeing a larger trend of families being more willing to drive maybe a couple of hours to a regional park or to a newly established LBE or to a newly renovated waterfront or pedestrian zone than spending all of that money to like travel out of state to go stay at the resorts. It's not, and one can never underestimate the power and the allure of those, really big parks. But I think that for people that have a smaller spend to work with, regional entertainment, regional attractions is where I see the future, particularly here. And one of the reasons why I want to focus on the DMV as a regional hub for themed entertainment is because, well, all this time I have been apologizing to people that, no, I'm sorry, I don't live in Orlando. Yes, I am from LA, but I live in Maryland, right? And so like I always had to apologize because I was living here. But the difference now is we're getting a mini sphere.
Yeah.
We're getting the mini sphere down in National Harbor. And so now there's all the chatter of hospitality groups, commercial real estate groups starting to figure out, okay, so then how are we going to get more heads in beds, right? How do we turn this into essentially like a really strong revenue stream for ourselves?
A destination.
Exactly. And so there is an official like initiative being put on by the state of Maryland to make Maryland a destination to visit for leisure, for entertainment, for culture. And as a result of meeting with folks at my local chamber and also speaking with representatives of the Baltimore Tourism Authority, I just realized, I went all the way down to Seatrade to learn the ins and outs of talking to tourism authorities, and I could have been doing it the whole time, like in my backyard. And so it was kind of that thought that just reinforced my commitment to speaking with other companies that are either fabricators, manufacturers, or like media producers that are out here. I think because we're not New York, we're not Orlando, we're not LA, a lot of the entertainment companies that are out here don't know about each other. And so I want to kind of like lift that up. And I don't just want to do it for Baltimore because not everybody's here, right? Like
Sure.
Mid-Atlantic is DC, Baltimore, Philly, South Jersey. I claim South Jersey.
That's awesome. Well, I have to ask you this because I know you have a workshop called Speakeasy Storytelling coming up. And I know you've said you can't live without snarky whimsy and whiskey, which tells me you probably do walk into strategy meetings a little bit differently than most people, right? And I'm curious about two things. One, I want to hear about this event, but also how do these elements help leaders lower their guard and create better conversations? And is that something that you're going to be talking about at this workshop?
Yes, to all the things. I am going to be teaching or co-facilitating a workshop with my business partner, Jared Wells. And it is called Speakeasy Storytelling. And surprise, surprise, it's going to be in a speakeasy. And so one of the things that I was grappling with is being able to bring people from completely different industries and sectors and backgrounds into the same room, right? Because I could have an entrepreneur that works in the medical industry. I could have a contractor that's trying to become a prime for a government contract, whether it's state or federal, or it doesn't matter. Or I could be supporting a company that's trying to do a new product launch. All of those personas are incredibly different, but the mechanics and I would say the lessons that undergird the development of branding and the development of story, that's all the same. That's
Yeah.
evergreen. And so I decided with my partner, I'm like, hey, let's do something weird. Let's do something a little wacky. And here's why. Because if you have all of these different folks that on paper have nothing in common, but they're all attracted to the allure and the mystique and the intrigue of getting a professional workshop done in a speakeasy and it's themed, that's what they have in common. Like that openness to be vulnerable in a room with other people that are there for the same reason.
Yeah.
And so that lowers the temperature, that lowers people's guard. Because if I have no problem getting up on stage and looking silly, then and you know, I have done that.
I mean, I do it like once a week.
No, right? Like, is it Tuesday? Right? And so the reason why we're structuring it the way that we are is because we think that there are very valuable lessons for everyone to walk away with. But if we were to market it as this is business development for the healthcare industry, well, then you shut everybody, in construction out. Or and so we want people to be attracted to the storytelling element of all of this, like the branding element, and people whose curiosity is genuinely piqued, because it doesn't do me or anybody any good to have a CEO in that room who is not actually interested in changing anything, who, he's just like, well, I already know everything and the sun rises and sets on me. So, that no, the immersive experience and the cohort, right? That is all part of the package. That is all part of the workshop. It's also the reason why we can't do it virtually, as much as I'd love to.
So you'll be workshopping the storytelling piece.
Yep.
For these businesses that'll be attending.
Yep.
That's awesome.
It's 3 hours of Jared, and he's currently working part-time for Disney Live Entertainment. So Jared's going to be doing like the brand narrative and walking people through, this is how you craft your story. Break for lunch, and then the last 3 hours is going to be me, and that's when he hands me the baton, and I'm like, okay, based on who you are and where you want to go, let's draw your map.
Yeah.
And help you bridge that.
So it's about clarity. Well, Liz, I know we're bumping up against time, and I know that there are going to be people watching who may want to attend this event or even just get in touch with you, because maybe this is a struggle that they're having in their business, somewhere they need to find clarity. They need to understand how to tell their story. How can someone watching or listening today get a hold of you?
I live on LinkedIn. I really do. When you bubble hunt and you see that little green dot next to my profile picture and it's like 3 a.m. in the morning, that is not a mistake.
Love that. I never heard the bubble hunt before.
Oh yeah, it's a thing.
But I will say this. I'm going to pay attention to that now. I did say to my husband as I was like doom scrolling in bed last night, and he looks over and he goes, Are you on LinkedIn? Like, yeah. You won't find me on any other platforms, but if I'm going to doom scroll, I'm going to doom scroll in a way that makes me money.
Well, or it just makes me laugh because I subscribe to LinkedIn After Dark and Weird LinkedIn. Like some of the best people I have met, are part of this whole subculture
All right, I'm going to have
on
to check that out.
on the platform. But yeah, I mean, they can reach out to me via our website. So it's just Liz at looking-glass.pro, Pro. And yeah, my number is on the website, so that is never going to change. So if people are interested in learning more about the TEA's involvement in the Mid-Atlantic, or signing up for the workshop that we're going to be doing, or just want to riff and do like a virtual coffee huddle and talk about the latest gossip, I'm down.
You're down for whatever. Well, Liz, thank you so much for being here. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, of course. And I appreciate you bringing such a different perspective to strategy and leadership. And I'm hoping you'll send me an invite to LinkedIn After Dark, I guess. I didn't even know that existed, but I'm the whole world I'm hoping to learn about. So thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Sondra, your team. You guys are awesome. I love this. And I hope we get to do it again sometime.
Keep me posted on how the workshop goes too.
Will do.
All right. Thanks, Liz.
Bye.
All right, folks, everyone watching, I'm curious what really stood out, at least to me today, is about growth. Sometimes isn't about doing more, it's about understanding more, getting clarity, finding friction. We talk a lot about that, finding the disconnects in your business, and maybe finding where the gaps between what we think we're delivering and what people are actually experience exists. At Gatemaster, we do see this every day because guest experiences don't break in one place. They break across systems, they break across moments, they break across your teams. And when those things don't align, and the experience doesn't become stronger. And when that's what we want to see, we want to see an experience become stronger because it is aligned. Organizations become stronger because of alignment, and growth becomes more sustainable. I'm Sondra Shannon, and this is Live with Sondra. Thank you for being here. I'll see you on the next show.